האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov, good evening, Dober V'Yetcher. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parshas Korach, Os Beis, section number 2. We're going to do the first half of this very interesting piece for tonight and save the second half, God willing, for next year. So before we begin, let's take a look at a pasuk from our parsha. This is close to the very beginning of Parshas Korach, Perek Tet Zayin in Bamidbar pasuk Gimel. Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aharon. And Korach and his supporters gathered around Moshe and Aaron, Vayomru aleihim, and they said to them, Rav lachem, it is much for you, ki chol ha'edah kulam kedoshim, because all of the congregation, all of them are holy. Uvesocham Hashem, and among them, among the people is Hashem. Umadua tisnasu al kahal Hashem. And why are you setting yourself up as rulers over the congregation of Hashem? So this, of course, is the beginning of Korach's revolt, the rebellion of Korach that the Parsha, of course, is famous for, or infamous, I should say. Let's get right into the Zera Shimshon, Os Beis, section 2. Madua tisnasu al kahal v'chule. And why are you setting yourself up as rulers over the people, the congregation of Hashem? Perush Rashi. Rashi explains, Im lokachta ata malchus. If you, Moshe, this is Rashi is paraphrasing what Korach said to Moshe and to Aaron, to Moshe here. Im lokachta ata malchus. If you, Moshe, took the kingship, meaning you made yourself ruler over the Jewish people, lo haya lecha livror le'achicha kehuna. You should not have selected for your brother the kehuna, the priesthood. Ad kan Lashono, until here is a quote from Rashi. Yesh ledaktek, we need to analyze. Lomo lo nokat hakol beloshon echad. Why didn't Rashi use a consistent language or consistent verbs in his comment? Dehainu lo hoya lecha litain le'achicha hakehuna. Rashi should have said, now that you took the kingship, you should not have given the kahuna to your brother. Dehainu delekicha unasina hakol inyan echad. Because using the word taking and giving, the words taking and giving, that's all the same type of language. That's consistent. So Rashi should have said, Moshe, now that you took the kingship, you should not have given the kahuna to your brother. Umahu loshon livror dinakat. But what is this language of livror, to select, that Rashi chose to use? And that why did Rashi paraphrase Korach as saying, Moshe, now that you took the kingship, why did you select? He changed the type of verb to a totally different type of verb. Why did you select the kahuna for your brother Aharon? Inami, alternatively, Rashi could have said, Im bararta ata malchus, if you selected the kingship, you shouldn't have selected the kahuna for your brother. That would have been another way of Rashi being consistent and using the same verb in reference to Moshe, also in reference to Aaron. But Rashi did not do that. Rashi switched from lekicha, Moshe, why did you take the kingship, to choosing. You should not have chosen the kahuna for your brother Aharon. There must be a reason, Zera Shimshon is asserting here. There must be a reason, and the Zera Shimshon wants to discover the reason why Rashi chose to change his language, his use of verbs, in this paraphrase of what Korach said to Moshe. Okay, so our challenge is in front of us. We understand the question, and it focuses on Rashi's changing from one verb, namely lekicha, to berera, to choosing, to going from going from taking the kingship to selecting the kahuna. Next paragraph. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, D'yesh chiluk bein hamalchus v'hakahuna. There is a difference between the kingship and the priesthood, the kahuna. Shahamalchus, because when it comes to the kingdom, the kingship, ben hamelech v'hanasi, the son of a king or a prince, a ruler, imra oilim melucha, if the son is fit to rule, umimale mokam avosav, and he can successfully replace and fill the place of his forefathers. Bevadai shehu kodem l'chol adam. Certainly, the son of a king should get that position first before any other person. The normal expectation is that unless there's some real deficit or some real problem with the son of a king, then he should replace his father. However, if the son is not fit for some reason to rule as the king, Eino Yoresh Keser Malchus, then, and only then, he doesn't inherit the crown of kingship. So when it comes to kings, the assumption is and the expectation is that the son of a king will rule after his father, and so forth and so on. The grandson will then rule after his father, and it will stay in the family again, unless you're in a situation where somehow there is no appropriate son to take over from the royal father. V'im kain yutztak bo lashon lekicha. If so, if that's how kingship works, then it makes sense, it's correct to use a language of taking. Shemisha rotze lizkos bo, because someone who wants to acquire or wants to merit to be a king, tzorech sheyikachenu v'yiknenu b'midos tovos uv'masim tovim. That person needs to purchase the right to be king through good attributes and good deeds. You don't just become the king automatically. You have to become the type of person who is worthy of being a king and inheriting the position from your father. So lekicha makes sense. It makes sense when Rashi said that Korach said to Moshe, if you took lakachta, if you took the kingship, that's how it works. You take the kingship by doing the things that are necessary to become the king. Aval hakehuna, but when it comes to the priesthood, la'olam hi holeches umisgalgeles me'av lebunim. The kahuna is different. By definition, it passes from father to son. It's transmitted from father to son. If a person is a Kohen, his son is automatically a Kohen. We don't require the son to do anything to prove his worth to become a Kohen. He is the Kohen if he's the son of a Kohen. That's how the kahuna, the priesthood, works. Afilu bilti re'uyim. And this process happens even if the sons of a Kohen are not worthy, they still are considered Kohanim. V'chevon shenivrar v'nivchar ha'av lekahuna, and since the father is selected to be a Kohen, lo tozuz mizaro le'olam, it will not pass from his children, from his generations, his future generations forever, just like Aaron. Aaron was selected by Hashem to be the first Kohen, and all of his children and grandchildren, etc., all of his descendants were Kohanim and are Kohanim till today. Umishum hachi kosav, and because of that phenomenon, it says lo hoyu lecha livror leachicha kehuna. Rashi changed the language to say you should not have selected for your brother the kahuna. So let's pause for a moment. The Zera Shimshon is explaining why it is that Rashi changed his language, threw us a little bit of a curveball and changed from lekicha regarding malchus and bereira, selecting or choosing, regarding the kahuna. And he just explained to us that malchus and kahuna work very differently, And the different words reflect that. The different words that Rashi chose reflect that. When it comes to Malchus, a person has to be worthy of it. And if a son of a king wants to be the next king, he has to show that he's worthy to and capable of ruling. So yes, it's true that there's he gets dibs on the position. There's an assumption and an expectation that the son of a king will take over from his father, but that's only if he's a roy, if he's appropriate and fit and has the right qualities. If not, then he won't be able to fill the position of his father. But when it comes, and that's why lekicha, the term lekicha makes sense. A person has to do the right things to become the next king. However, when it comes to the kahuna, it's automatic. You don't have to do anything to prove your worth. If your father's a Kohen, you are a Kohen. And all of the Kohanim inherited their kahuna-ship. They inherited the priesthood by being descendants of Aharon. And the word for that isn't lekicha. The word for that is berera. It comes through selecting. Once the first person is selected as a Kohen, in this case Aharon, then it automatically transfers and is transmitted to his future descendants. Switching now to the paragraph on the left, the column on the left top paragraph. V'korach lo hayirotze lechalek bein malos halolu. Korach did not wish to distinguish between these two levels. Korach was not comfortable with distinguishing between Malchus and Kahuna in the sense of Malchus being something you have to earn and Kahuna being automatic. That did not work for Korach. V'amar le Moshe, and therefore he said to Moshe, Im lakachta ata Malchus b'lekicha, if you took the kingship for yourself as something that is a lekicha, it has to be acquired, it has to be worked for, which means that your sons will not be automatically in the position of kings and rulers over the Jewish people just because you're the ruler over the Jewish people. And of course, as an aside, we know that Moshe's sons did not take over rulership of the Jewish people after Moshe died. The leader that replaced the leader of the Jewish people after Moshe was, of course, his great student Yehoshua, not one of his children. So if Korach says to Moshe, if you chose to set up the melucha, the kingship, the rulership over the Jewish people, where it did not automatically transfer to your sons, imlo, imlo, if they were not fit for it, lo livra lachicha kehuna, then you should not have selected the kahuna for your son Aaron b'lashon berera, with this language of choosing the hainu shabonav yu la'olam muchzakim, which implies that Aaron's children will always be kohanim, bein ru'uyim, bein enum ru'uyim, whether or not they are fit for it, whether or not they are not fit for it. So now we're beginning to get to the crux of the matter. The reason Rashi quoted Korach as switching from the word lekicha to the word berera is because that was an essential part of Korach's problem and Korach's argument to Moshe. Moshe, you yourself made it so that even though you're the ruler of the Jewish people, the rulership, the kingship, the malchus doesn't automatically go to your children. And in fact, as we just said, it did not go to his children. So why in the world, when it came to saying that Aaron, to announcing and appointing Aaron as the first Kohen Gadol, why did you suddenly set up a whole new type of system where the kahuna automatically went from Aaron to his children and so forth and so on for all future generations? Why didn't you do the same thing, that it could only go from father to son if the child was appropriate and roy and fit for it, but if not, not, just like you did with the malchus, with the kingship over the people. Next paragraph. V'hatam shelo ratzu Korach lechalek beinehem, and the reason that Korach wanted to distinguish between these two things, Yuvan b'mai de'isa b'Yerushalmi debrachos perek ches. it can be understood with something stated by Chazal in the Yerushalmi Masechta Brachos in the 8th chapter. De Shmuel Savar de Hamishtamesh Bekohanim Mo'al. The great Amora, the great Talmudic sage Shmuel, was of the opinion that a person who makes inappropriate use of a Kohen is guilty of violating the transgression of Me'ilah. What is Me'ilah? Me'ilah, not to be confused with Milah, like the much more common word bris milah, circumcision. This is Mem Ayin Lamed. Milah is Mem Yud Lamed He. So this is a whole new word and a totally different word. Me'ilah means that a person appropriates, a person uses something holy, like let's imagine something, an article that is in the Beis HaMikdash and is used, a vessel in the Beis HaMikdash. This person decides, I'm having a fancy dinner party, and I once saw that they had an absolutely beautiful, they had many beautiful gold and silver kalim utensils in the Beis HaMikdash. So I'll talk to my friend, the Kohen, and I'll pay him off, and he'll give me some of those vessels, and I'll use them at my dinner party, and then give them back afterwards to the temple treasury, and nobody will be the wiser. So that's called Me'ilah. You don't have to steal things and keep them. If you use for your personal benefit something that is kodesh, that is holy, and that you're forbidden to use, that's Me'ilah. So Shmuel held that if a person makes use of Kohanim, let's say a person takes Kohanim and tells them, I want you to mow my lawn and clean my car, and insists that they do so. So you're putting Kohanim to use for your personal benefit. Shmuel said that's a type of Me'ilah. That's a type of misuse, a misappropriation of holy beings. V'yolif mikalim. He learned this out from the word kalim, utensils. Shahakelim kodesh, because certain utensils, like the ones in the Beis HaMikdash, are holy. Vehakohanim holy, kodesh, and the Kohanim are holy, are sacred. Ma hakelim hamishtamshim bahem mo'al, just like when it comes to these holy vessels of the Beis HaMikdash, if a person uses them for his or her own use, he or she violates Me'ilah, they are being mo'al, they transgress that prohibition. Shmuel felt that the same thing was true of the Kohanim. Obviously, Kohanim are human beings, they're people, they're not utensils, but if you use them for your own benefit inappropriately, then you're also violating the prohibition of Me'ilah. Vahaposkim pligi, and the halachic authorities disagree, I halacha kishmuel. If the actual law follows Shmuel's opinion or not. So Shmuel stated his view in the Gemara in the Yerushalmi of Masechta Brachos, is where it's quoted. But the later authorities disagreed as to whether or not that view of Shmuel's is actually how we hold in Jewish law, in halacha. Ve'adarabba, and we can actually try to make the point that the opposite is true. Kai Malon, we hold sheyochol hakohen limchol al kivodo, that a kohen is able to give up his honor. He's able to be mochel. He's able to forgive his honor. What does that mean? That means that according to the halacha, we are supposed to show respect and deference to a kohen. But let's say a kohen says, you know what, this Sunday I just want to be one of the guys. Don't treat me any differently. Don't give me, don't tell me, you don't make me the guy who leads the mezumin after the benching, which we do with a kohen. Don't set me up. Don't tell me that I'm going to get the first aliyah in the shul on Monday because I'm a kohen. I want to be one of the guys. Don't treat me any differently. Treat me like a regular colleague, a regular friend. So kohen hamochel al kvodo, a kohen who wants to forgive and forgo his honor, he can do that. So that's what we hold. So if so, that seems to imply that the halacha does not follow Shmuel's opinion that a Kohen's honor and a Kohen's holiness, his kedusha, is so strict that it's inviolate, that it can't be given up, it can't be changed, it can't be given up even by the Kohen himself. No, a Kohen can give up his honor. And therefore, it would seem that Shmuel's idea that a person who makes some kind of personal use of the Kohanim is violating Me'ilah, that would seem to be not true, because that doesn't fit really well with the idea that we do hold in Jewish law, that a Kohen who wants to forego his honor is allowed to do so. He may do so. So apparently his honor and the deference we're supposed to show to him can be treated leniently if he wishes that. Next paragraph. V'chosav hakovod chachamim, and in the Sefer Kovod Chachamim, he wrote, the tam hamachlokes hu. The reason for this argument about whether we follow Shmuel's view from the Gemara and Yerushalmi Brachos or not is deman disvirale de'ein hakohen yochol limchol al kvodo. The person who holds that a Kohen is not able to give up his honor, Hainu mishum, this is because, we're now moving to the next page, column on the right. Hainu mishum de me'ikara huvrar shevet levi l'kedushas kahuna ulechelko shel makom. The reason that a Kohen, the reason that there's a school of thought that says that a Kohen cannot ever forego his honor, he can't just be one of the guys, is because from the very beginning, Shevet Levi was selected to have the Kedushas Kahuna, to have the special holiness of the Kohen and be part of their tribe, Ulechelko Shel Makom, and to be the portion, so to speak, of Hashem. So Shevet Levi was chosen from its inception to be a special tribe with special Kedusha, to be the tribe that the Kohanim came from, and for Shevet Levi itself to be the special tribe of Hashem. Uman desvirale sheyochol, and according to the other school of thought, the other opinion that a Kohen can forego his honor and be one of the guys, Savar, that school of thought believes, Shelo nichna Shevet Levi lekedushas kehuna, that the tribe of Levi did not receive the kedusha of the Kohanim being part of their tribe from the beginning. No, this only developed because of the sin of the firstborn with the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf. Meaning originally the firstborn, the Bechor of every family, the firstborn male in every family was intended to serve, was destined to serve as Kohanim in the Mishkan and later the Beis HaMikdash. That's how the system was going to work. However, when the people got involved with the sin of the Chet HaEgel, of the golden calf, and the firstborns themselves did not refrain, they didn't hold themselves back and say, no, 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 we have a special destiny, we have a special mission, we're not going to get involved in the Chet HaEgel. Since that didn't happen, nifsalu, they were invalidated from serving as the Kohanim, and that's when the idea took root and shape that the Kohanim, the descendants of Aaron, would serve in that role. V'lochein ein kedushosam chamura kol kach. Therefore, the holiness of the Kohanim wasn't ingrained and inherent from the very beginning. So it's not as strict. It's not as severe. V'yicholim limchol, and a Kohen can forego his honor, and that can be accepted. That can be, the halacha recognizes that fact, that if a Kohen forgoes his honor, kevodo mochol, his honor is forgiven. Next paragraph. Ve'od amru zichronim levracha b'meseches Yoma. Chazal made another statement that's relevant here in the Gemara of Meseches Yoma, which deals with Yom Kippur. Lama ne na Shaul. So the Gemara in Maseches Yoma asked the question, why was Shaul punished? Shaul was the first king over the Jewish people. He was appointed by Shmuel Hanavi at Hashem's command, and he was the first king over the Jewish people. But in the end, he was punished severely, and the kingship was taken away from him, and it did not transmit to his children. The second king over the Jewish people was not a member of Shaul's family. It was an entirely new person from a different tribe, and that, of course, was David HaMelech. So the Gemara asked, why was Shaul punished and had to have the kingship taken away from him? And the Gemara answers, Mipnei shemochal al kivodo, because he forgave his honor. That's a reference to the fact, and we see this in Sefer Shmuel Aleph, that's a reference to the fact that after Shaul, right after Shaul was anointed as king by Shmuel Hanavi, there were some mockers. Excuse me, there were some naysayers who made fun of Shaul, and they said, who is this guy? Who is he? Nobody ever heard of him. What can he possibly do for us? There must be a mistake here. This guy cannot possibly be successful as our king. And Shaul had a choice. Shaul's choice was to assert himself and have these mockers and naysayers punished and dealt with, perhaps even killed, for making fun of the king, for being mored for Malchus, for saying words that were a type of revolt against the king. Shaul could have had them killed or certainly punished severely. But Shaul chose not to do anything, to be mochel al kavodo. Shaul chose to forego his honor. And it was because of that he ultimately lost the kingship, according to this opinion being quoted by Zera Shimshon in Maseches Yoma. There are other opinions in the Gemara over there about why Shaul lost the kingship, but this is the one of the opinions. V'koshe, Zera Shimshon says, this is difficult to understand. How could there be an opinion like this? How could anyone say this? The entire world agrees that a king who wants to forego his honor, ein kivodo mochul. His honor is not forgiven, meaning it's not up to the king. A king's honor is beyond him. He cannot give up his honor. He must always be treated with respect and deference. So even if the king wants to be one of the guys, those other guys should never treat him except as the king. He's the king forever and ever, through and through. And ein kivodo mochel, even if he wants to forgo his honor, it cannot be given up. How could it be? How could we even suggest that Shaul, who was such a Talmud Chacham, such a great Torah scholar, according to what Chazal teaches us about him, Yaseh neged adin, how could he do something that clearly went against the law by being mochel al kavodo, by foregoing on his honor, when there is no opinion that allows that? There is no school of thought that allows that. So how could the Gemara suggest that that's what he did and that's what he got punished for? V'yesh lomar, and we can say, next paragraph, the svirale, that Shaul HaMelech was of the opinion, shezeh hadin lo ne'amar, this law about a king not being able to give up his own honor was only stated b'melachim haboyim miYehuda. Lo ne'amar ella b'melachim haboyim miYehuda. It was only stated regarding the kings who would come from the tribe of Yehuda. Shaul was not from Yehuda. Shaul was from the tribe of Binyamin. And Shaul, as Zera Shimshon theorizes, felt like this whole law about a king not being able to give up his honor had to do with the quote-unquote real kings who would come from the tribe of Yehuda. Shemitchila huvrar oso hashevet, because from the very beginning, that tribe, the tribe of Yehuda, Likedushas Keser Malchus, was selected to have the special holiness of having the crown of the kingship. That we know simply by going back to Bereshis, remembering our study of Bereshis, right in the Psukim, when Yaakov Avinu gives the brachos to his sons, Yehuda is described as being the son who the kings of the Jewish people will come from. And therefore, Shaul felt, okay, I was appointed as king, but I don't have the same holiness and the same seriousness, the same level of kingship as a king that will come from the tribe of Yehuda in the future. I'm from the tribe of Binyamin. Binyamin is not the tribe of kings. It's not the royal tribe. Yehuda is the royal tribe from the very beginning. VeHaKadosh Baruch Hu cholak leoso hashevet michavodo hamekudosh. And Hashem, this is all explaining Shaul's reasoning. And Hashem gave from his own honor, his own sacred honor, to the tribe of Yehuda, that they should be the tribe of kings. And that's why the kings of Shevet Yehuda are not able to forgive their honor. But the kingship that was given to Shaul, he did not come from the tribe of Yehuda. It was not as serious. It was not as inviolate as the kingship of the kings of Yehuda. And therefore Shaul thought that he would be able to be mochel al kevodo, to forgive his honor and to let these guys go unpunished, who had mocked him and made fun of him right after he was anointed as the first king over the Jewish people. In other words, Shaul, of course, Zera Shimshon is saying, Shaul, of course, knew the law, and he knew the din, that a melech shemochel al kvodo ein kvodo mochel, a king who tries to forgive his honor still stands intact and it's not forgiven. He knew that, of course, but he thought that that only applied to the quote-unquote real kings of Shevet Yehuda, not to a king as he was from a different tribe that was not the royal tribe, namely the tribe of Binyamin. Omnam, however, bezeh ta'ah, he made a mistake here. Shehoil shebachar bo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, since Hashem is the one who chose him to be the king, afal pi shelo hoya ela mipnei tar umasan shel Yisrael, even though Hashem made that choice only because the Jewish people were complaining and they were driving Shmuel HaNavi a little bit crazy, saying, we want a king, we want a king, we want a king. So even though it wasn't at the right time and the right moment for a king to be appointed from the perspective of Hashem, and by the way, from the perspective of Shmuel HaNavi, nonetheless, Hashem said, okay, if this is what the Jewish people are insisting upon, explain to them why they might not really be better off with a king right now, but if they insist, give them a king and appoint. I'll send you the person who should be appointed, which turned out to be Shaul, again, not from the tribe of Yehuda, but rather from the tribe of Binyamin. But even so, even though this was a kind of plan B, im kol zeh, nonetheless, hayolo linhog nisiuso baramim. Shaul should have conducted his leadership with the highest authority. Shaul should have asserted his authority exactly as if he was the number one king over the Jewish people and not have worried about what tribe he came from and what tribe he didn't come from. In order to fulfill the description that the Torah itself gives to appointing a king, which is som tasim, you should surely place alecha on yourself, melech, a king. A king is placed above the Jewish people with a double language, som tasim alecha, surely place the king above you, shetehei emoso alecha, which Chazal says it means that the fear of the king must be on you. You don't appoint a king and then think you're going to treat the person like one of the guys that you can just ignore his orders and his command. No. Realize that when you appoint a king, when a king is appointed, he is totally above you. He will rule over you. And emoso alecha, the fear of the king, the respect, the honor, and even the fear of the king must be on you at all times. It cannot be taken away. Even the king himself cannot be mochel al kivodo, cannot give up his honor. And because Shaul made a mistake in his reasoning and his understanding of this idea, he was punished according to this opinion in Maseches Yoma, and the kingship was taken away from him and did not transfer over to his children. So we're going to stop here. We're a little bit past the halfway point, but we'll save the rest for another time, God willing. But let's just quickly recap. So the Zera Shimshon, with his always and his consistent focus on specific language that is used, whether it's in the Torah, whether it's in Rashi and Chazal, notices that Rashi changed a verb from lekicha to bereira, from taking the kingship to choosing the kahuna, and explained to us how this reflects the difference between how Malchus works and how the kahuna works, and then went on to show that Korach was not comfortable with this, and that's why Rashi was quoting Korach the way that he did, because part and parcel of Korach's challenge to Moshe was, why did you set up a kingship for yourself that might go to your children, but might not go to them? It wasn't automatic, but then you gave the kahuna to Aaron in such a way that his children and future descendants automatically received it, even whether they were appropriate or not appropriate. And then the Zera Shimshon went on to discuss other sources that talk about this issue of the kahuna and the malchus, and got into Shaul HaMelech and his malchus, and how a king who forgoes his honor, and how even a king who forgoes his honor is it's not forgiven, and always a king must always be shown the proper honor, respect, and fear, even if he wishes to forego it. Yashar Korach for joining in the learning in the Zera Shimshon this week. We look forward, God willing, to learning together in the Zera Shimshon again on next week's Parsha.